Welcome to MCN and our first ride impression of the 2024 KTM 990 Duke.
This MCN video has been produced in partnership with Bikeshore Insurance.
The 990 is the third generation of KTM's middleweight, or rather mid-range, naked bikes with a parallel twin engine. The first two, the 790 and the 890, weren't really separated by much more than a little bit of capacity and the need to meet a new emission standard. The 990, however, is the first big revision and it's near enough an all-new bike. I'm not going to go on about the tech too much, just because we've already done a video with the project leader where he's gone into all the changes in much greater detail, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the main changes that affect this bike. Engine-wise, it's now a 990, or not quite. It's actually 947cc, and KTM claims very little is shared with the old engine, apart from the basic layout. There's no standout big technical changes, there's no camshaft system like they've introduced on the Super Duke, there's just nips and tucks and tweaks throughout. The result that this base model Duke now makes the same peak power as the discontinued 890R, but with more guts lower down, and getting on for 20 horsepower more than the previous standard base model 890. If you're wondering where the R model is of the new 990, one KTM employee had a few too many cocktails of an evening and he let slip that's coming in 2025. It's going to have the same formula of a better chassis with a high spec suspension and a swing arm that has a linkage as well, rather than a direct shock as on the base 990, and probably more power again, so we're really excited to see that. Back here in 2024, the base spec 990 has a new chassis. The frame is the same basic shape as the old bike, but it's been made stiffer for improved stability, and owners of the old bike might notice the swing arm pivots inside the lower frame sections instead of outside. Trademark exposed lattice swing arm has gone too, and it's been replaced with a gull arm that's actually less stiff than before, and that's to help balance the chassis out with the new stiffer mainframe. The forks have been refined, the shock is new, the wheels and discs are new and they're lighter as well, but overall the bike's actually 5 kilos heavier. We'll wager a chunk of that is the new exhaust, which crams all the silencing and catalytic converters under the engine and the swing are mostly out of sight. The side exit silencer doesn't actually do a great deal, and if you fit the optional Acropovich silencer, it makes no difference to performance, we're told by KTM. And lastly, it's had a significant restyle, and one of the things that people notice for the most part is the new headlight, which has been really contentious. It's got lots of holes and kind of strange LED lights facing in different directions. Now, when the bike came out, I was with 90% of the people online who thought it looked like an absolute mess. But in real life, it makes a lot more sense. It's not as offensive as it appeared on screen, and it hangs together a lot better with the rest of the styling as well. Now, styling is obviously very subjective. You may still hate it in real life, but what I will say is it's worth going to look at one before you pass judgment on that. The other thing I've noticed as well with the new 990 is that it's much better made. The fit and finishes and paint is much nicer than it was before. It's a steel tank rather than plastic as well, so that's just a bit more solid and reassuring. And one other thing I've noticed as well is the improvement in terms of fit and finish. KTM say they're positioning the bike much closer to the 1390 Super Duke in terms of performance, but also price and the way it's put together as well, and that's really obvious. I mean, don't forget they've reintroduced the 790 Duke, now made in China by CF Moto, as a more entry-level bike at around £7,000. So it makes sense that this bike can kind of move up a little bit and be a bit nicer. And that premium look and feel, that really translates to the riding experience as well. Now, this was probably going to be a slightly unpopular opinion with owners of the old bikes, but I always felt that the 790 and the 890, they were a bit flimsy and a little bit plasticky in areas, and they felt like a bike where most of the R&D money went into the engine rather than the rest of the bike, and that was kind of cut price to hit the price point that they wanted. The 990 has none of that. It's a much more solid, rounded bike, and it feels much better for it. The 990 is a far better balance of chassis and engine, and is better in pretty much every regard. It feels much more solid, stable and grown up, and you get locked securely into the new tank and seat unit when you get on board, and there's more feel from the front end because you're that little bit further forward over the handlebars. The forks are now adjustable from compression and rebound for the first time. There's only 5 clicks on either side, which might not be enough for people who are experiencing suspension adjustment, but KTM say those 5 options have been tuned to give a meaningful difference while being easy to understand for those of you that just want to make a simple change. You don't need tools to do it either. There's a plastic knob on top of each fork, one for compression, one for rebound, so you can even do it on the move. I had a brief meddle with it. The launch road had an amazing stretch of back-to-back mid and low speed corners with a smooth surface, so I had an extra click of both to add some more control, and I got exactly what I wanted. The brakes are the same as the old bike. 4-piston KTM branded radial calipers from one of Brembo's subsidiary companies. Once you've got the pads biting on the disc, there's enough progression, feel and power, and the ABS isn't intrusive either. and you can switch it to supermoto mode so you can disengage the rear to do childish skids. The only gripe is that the initial bite is a bit abrupt, almost like the pistons stick a little bit in the caliper when you first pull the lever and then suddenly respond with, you give it a bit more of a squeeze. It's not a drastic issue, you tune into it after a little while, but it'd be something that you might notice if you go and take a test ride. But the engine is the real star of the show. The old bikes they're good, they were strong, but they were quite linear and quite revvy for a twin. The new bike is much punchier right from the bottom. The first touch of the throttle, it feels like a big twin, which after all it is now nearly a litre. Yeah, it's only really a middleweight these days in terms of weight, which is 189 kilos fully fuelled, according to KTM. The new engine really is the star of the show, and it's all about that initial pickup off the throttle and that mid-range grunt that it now has. It's really useful if you're just getting about. It's much easier to ride because you've always got a grunt at hand. But if you're on a fun ride as well, it's much more fun because you've just got more to play with. And that's kind of underpinned by good fuelling and throttle response as well. There's no horrible snatch when you're kind of mid-corner, you go from zero throttle and start winding up to accelerate out. There's nothing nasty there, it doesn't do anything untoward to upset the chassis or kind of break traction or anything like that. So it's a really fun, strong overall engine package. The electronics are usual KTM high standards. They're very adjustable. You can do it on the move. You can separate out wheelie control and traction control, things like that. ABS, you can do it all separately and play around with it to your heart's content. It's not intrusive in any way. It's a very good system. The only gripe is, for some people, is the sort of retention of the demo mode, which they introduced last year, which has been a bit of a kind of bone of contention for KTM customers. And if you're not familiar with that, basically what it does, you buy the bike and you don't pay for any extras. It has all the electronic options enabled, ready to go. But after the first 900 miles or so, all those things turn off. And if you still want them, you're going to have to go back to the dealer and pay for them to keep using them. If you opt for everything, you need the tech pack, and that's the best part of 900 quid. Now, KTM say that that's only kind of gone down badly with 40% of customers. That's still quite a lot, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects sales ongoing, but to be honest, I'm not expecting it to go anywhere anytime soon because this kind of practice is prevalent in the car world, and I bet other manufacturers follow suit as well. My overall takeaway from this launch is that this mid-range Duke has really come of age now. They've sanded off the rough edges and they've given it more grunt and they've refined the rest of the bike, and it's a really well-rounded overall package. And on merit alone, it's going to be really competitive in this class. The only real issue is the price. The better finish, the better spec components and higher spec have pushed the price way up to £12,999 in the UK, which is a hefty chunk in comparison to its rivals. The Street Triple RS is £11,695. The Ducati Monster comes in at £11,295 for the base model, and an MT-09 SP is £11,800. All are fantastic bikes and a clear £1,000 or more cheaper if you pay cash. And there'll still be a significant chunk less on monthly finance if that's the way you prefer to buy your bike. And the KTM's price is before you add on the electric parts as well, the tech packs and things like that. Is it worth it? Well, at the moment, we've seen some dealers knocking out the old 1290 Super Duke R for £14,000, which is only £1,000 more than 990. And in that regard, it's hard to justify it when it's so much more than its rivals and only a little bit less than the kind of much higher spec, much more potent previous version of the Big Duke. So we might feel differently about it when we do a group test in the UK. Maybe it warrants that extra money with all the new features and the power and so on, but at the moment it's not looking good for the KTM just in that, which is a real shame because otherwise it's a stunning bike and it's probably some of the most fun I've had on launch in a long time. So thanks for watching. Make sure you tune back in, like and subscribe so you can see our group test when we do that back here in the UK, and make sure to check out a video on the 1390 Super Duke launch as well.
This MCN video has been produced in partnership with Bikesure Insurance.